Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, whatever time you're watching this at. Welcome to the third installment of What Now Irishman. My conversation partner today is a very interesting man, Waterford based. So I'm going to bring him up now and he can tell you all about himself, Mr. Aaron Joyce. Aaron,
How you
welcome
doing,
to the
Martin?
show.
Thank
Very, very
you.
nice to meet you. I know you, but I've never actually met you.
Absolutely. Yeah, I was actually only talking to a good friend of yours today about that very same thing. Would have seen you at maybe a couple of protests or public organisation meetings and things like that would have happened for different causes and issues, I'd say, since about 2020, 2021 that we may have respectfully been involved in, as individuals. But yeah, never got the chance to actually speak with you or converse with you, and I
Well,
suppose that could be said for so many people within the movement. But look,
well, I'm just going to throw it straight at you now.
yeah,
What now, Irishman?
yeah, what now? Well, couldn't, gee, I hope we have, how many hours have you, Martin? We could,
Long as, as long as,
God,
as long as you have, yeah.
yeah, there's a lot we could go into there. What now? We find ourselves in 2026, start of the year. How much better off are we now than last year? How much better off are we now than 4 or 5 years ago? Not much better off at all. I feel politically and economically, I think we've gone through a lot of challenges as people. I think we've been challenged as people, and I think we've had a lot of disappointments. I suppose we speak about elections or politics. There's so many avenues we could branch with that. But just as you asked me the question, what now? I think we're in trouble. I think what's going on as a country, maybe, or for us and our lives and the impacts that the changes that have taken place in recent years and politically and failures in elections. I think we're in trouble, Martin. Like a lot of our, I suppose Western European brothers and sisters, that we see so much problems, that have, I suppose, grown. We could go down different routes with Germany and Sweden there. I'd love you to come in on this. I could rant and rant for the day, but when
Rant
you
it.
ask me that question, my brain, would automatically go into thinking in this framing format. We are in a bit of trouble, aren't we? Just like I say, our Western European brothers and sisters, with some of the immense changes and challenges that we have faced and that has occurred in recent years in our respective countries.
Would you say it is naturally occurring or is it by design? Because it is
I
happening all across the European, we'll say the English speaking world. It doesn't seem to be happening anywhere else. It's America, Canada, Australia, Europe, and the rest of the English speaking world that is experiencing the economic issues, the immigration issues, the cultural issues.
Absolutely. No, I categorically would go with your latter statement being your second statement, of course, there. Like, absolutely. Like, there's nothing, of course, we all agree in our different projects and things that we do in life. Nothing works without discipline, framework, organization, and planning. And I'm afraid that is the case here as well. Now, why? And we could go down another avenue here, the whys.
Mm.
Why now? What's the impacts of this? Who gains? That old saying, follow the money.
Yeah, I think greed is an awful lot to do with it. I think there's a strain of humanity that is different to us. They have a hole that can't be filled, and they put themselves into. It's like the adage that only psychopaths become CEOs of companies because they basically use the bodies of the people they killed to stack up to climb the ladder, and you have to be in less emotional than a normal man to reach those heights, so to speak. And then there is people out there who have this unfulfilled hole that there's no they cannot get enough power, they cannot get enough wealth, they cannot get enough of anything. And it's this drive to just more and more and more and more. And then you have the people who claim to be philanthropists, etc., and stuff like that, who want to save the world by reducing the population, etc., and all of the stuff that we know is going on. And people can say, oh, that's conspiracy theory. It's not. There's enough facts there now to say that, you know what I mean. There's enough data there to say that there is people out there who want to dim the sun. The UK want to do it. There's people out there who want to spray certain things into the atmosphere to change climate and reduce growth, etc. And look, all the data is there. I suppose the why is unimportant because people have been trying to rule the world and control civilizations since the dawn of time, since written, recorded history. There's always been somebody who wanted to be king or someone who wanted to be worshipped as a god. It's almost human nature. But now we're seeing something different. We're seeing what I would say is an attempt to erase a certain demographic of people through mass immigration and mass migration. I don't know if you'd agree with that or not, but that would be my take on it.
Yeah, I'm afraid with the facts and let's face it, the facts and logic that we see in front of us, I'm afraid, wouldn't it bring me and many others to have to agree with your point there, because that's exactly the case, you know. And you spoke of certain things there, I suppose, being dented and affected, I suppose. One of which I know you're passionate about, and of course, you know, both personally and politically, being our own Irish culture, our history and heritage. And this again, we can cross-reference across Western Europe to be deeply affected by the changes that have occurred in some of these countries, and the impacts and changes from what you just stated regarding immigration itself even is just one major impact point. That's only one major impact point on the things and issues and I suppose areas such as culture, our history, our like. There was one key point there just as it crosses my mind, you know, like the offense is a big thing that seemingly flags and these little actions taken by government, shall we say, like that changes such things taken from museums, shall we say, and this flag is allowed and that flag isn't allowed because it offends certain people. You know, I think if we're going to keep going down these lines, we're going to be in a very dangerous position. That because you know, I'm certainly an advocate for freedom of speech. You know, I feel that is, you know, it has to happen. I certainly am. It has to happen. You know, what a vague and silly statement that is. It's I don't even know how to word it. It should be.
It's
It is a right. It is a right that just
an
has to be
inalienable
there.
right. Yeah,
You know,
an inalienable right. Yeah, and it's
you know,
protected by it's protected by the Constitution as well. And it doesn't matter which Constitution you subscribe to. If you subscribe to any Constitution, 1937, it doesn't matter. The freedom to express yourself is inalienable. You know what I mean? It's about. I suppose I'm going to segue into a question about we'll say religion, God, systems of control, power, connection to the land, and stuff like that. In relation to, if we're to have a conversation with this, what do you subscribe to? Where do your rights come from?
you're asking me a very good one here now. You know, for me, I've definitely fallen in my life into the avenues of spirituality without losing Christianity, if you get my drift. There's a sense of belief, understanding, deep faith that I certainly, as a person, possess in Jesus or in a godlike figure. And I'd also have to express with great honesty a deep belief and sense and meaning in spirituality in nearly all its senses and meanings. I'm a person who definitely would be of the belief that we're spiritual beings having a human experience in that essence, if you could get where I'm going with that.
100%, yeah.
That is my deep belief and my direct belief. If I was asked that as to what we are, you know, where we come from, again, a very simple statement to summarize my beliefs would be that I don't think and believe that intercourse between a male and a female just created me here today. May have certainly created the vehicle and my genetic makeup and the body that I'm in, but it did that alone create me. I'm a bit unsure on that.
The energy, the miracle of life.
Yes.
You know that say we're all just stardust. You know, it's very, 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 very true. And there's definitely bigger things at play. And I don't actually think it's for us to understand. I think that's the whole concept of faith. It doesn't matter what you believe in. We can't prove it. You just feel it. You know, it's there. And nor would you want to prove it, because if you get into trying to prove something, then you're trying to become something greater than we currently are. I think we were something greater. I think we become something greater again. But for now, we're just meat bags with a bit of something magic inside us, you know. And we should just enjoy that for what it is. And I think people get lost looking for meaning. And you can go down, like I'm currently relearning our old history. And our myths and our legends that I would have known in school, but you lose them. And it's fantastic. It's fantastic. But you could just tie it into other things around the world and other entities around the world and other creatures and stories and myths and stuff like that. And it's I personally think we're older than the system will let us know. I think people, as a people, especially the Irish people, I think we're much, much older than they let on, so to speak. And there's probably reasons behind that, nefarious, of course, but I think we're a very, very ancient people. It's part of why I believe that you and I and people like us are doing what we're doing, because I believe in genetic memory. I think there's something in us that we remember. We remember a connection. We remember an older time. We remember responsibility, that maybe other people don't have access to. And again, there's people far more advanced than I am in relation to this stuff that can connect to all sorts of stuff. I hope to get some of them on at some stage. But in relation to spirituality, Christianity is lovely. I'm not a Catholic. I was obviously baptized and raised as a Catholic. I don't subscribe to the Vatican. I believe it's an enemy of humanity. But I would be Christian. I believe that a human being walked this planet with a wonderful message and died for a greater meaning. And I can't leave it as simple as that. I don't need a theology doctrine to look any more into it, and that's what I call faith. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. No, I love the way you put it. Again, like similar to me, trying to put a direct statement on it. This people complicate this. There's a lot of people, if you have faith, you have faith, and you don't have to overly explain that to anybody. We all have that degree of faith or belief in something, a degree of a higher power. That we all need it at points and parts of our lives. We all turn to it at points and parts of our lives. I could tell you some stories, Martin, of gentlemen, shall we say, that I would have come across in over the years that I've heard praying or turning to God or deities that I never thought I would see today, but I did see it. And again, in certain points. And wouldn't it be sad if we didn't have those things? Wouldn't it be sad? In my opinion, I think it would. And I think it's overcomplicated. Another avenue of conversation, the wars that are created in the world over it, started, caused, our history says it, we see it today in modern day, that it still goes on. It's all a bit crazy. And,
would you have empathy for people that don't have faith?
Absolutely. Look, if they don't have faith, they don't have faith. Atheist people who buy into the fact as well, also that, look, we're just here. And look, I see this a bit morbid, really, isn't it? If we believe that we're just here, we just got planted here, we're going to be here for 60, 70, 80 years if we're lucky, and we can go away and have children, create beautiful memories, but she'll be all gone anyway, and all our ancestors, they're gone. There's no memory, there's no energetic imprint of them, there's nothing here, sure, it's all fake, and we're here now for 60, 70 years, which I'd like to point out is not a lot of time. And then time element has to come in here, and existence, time, energy. We could go down a massive conversation here. But they all come into play. And I just am of the belief that our energy, our creation, Martin and Aaron and all of our brothers and sisters in the world today, we weren't created and aren't created just 60 to 70 years on Earth, called 6 years Earth time. It's my belief, like everything else, like a transition of something you burned into smoke or water into vapor, we change and transform into a different energy, shall we say, form. And that is my belief, without going too technical down that line. But I truly do believe that. I truly do believe that.
Would you agree with me or disagree with me if I told you that I 100% agree with your changing form and changing state? But would you believe that in that tiny window of time, I have this thing: time is the only commodity I care about. I don't care about gold, silver, money, anything else, power, but time. I really, really care about time, because it's the only commodity I know, as a matter of fact. I could win the lotto tomorrow and be a very, very wealthy man. That the odds are quite low, but it could still happen. I can't get any more time. Whatever's allotted to me, that's it. So I believe it's the most precious commodity, and what we do with it is very, very, very important. But we also change state as we exist. If you go back and compare, we'll say 15 to 20-year-old Aaron Joyce, and then 20 to 30-year-old Aaron Joyce, and so on and so forth, you're actually physically not the same person, because every atom in our body changes over 7 or 8 years or something to that effect. But your mental state, your knowledge, the who you were is completely different to, I probably wouldn't be able to have a conversation with 20-year-old myself. We'd just be so different, so to speak. We'd have absolutely nothing in common. What do you think about that in relation to how we mature and how we change, and how so put it in terms of, okay, what led you to politics? When you were a 20-year-old man, would you have had any interest in politics or activism? Or
in a sense, I'd have to be honest, in a sense, not totally. When you ask the question, I had an interest in people and I had an interest in community, but not necessarily politics, going down that route. I had a great interest in our past and the people of our past, and Ireland itself. I was a very proud Irishman in England at a young age, and just at that curvature, really, I'm 34 now, Martin. So if you're like, but at 18, you're going back 16 years ago, and just at that time, it still wasn't totally, lovey-dovey with Irish people in certain parts of England, let's face it still isn't today, but certainly back then it was a little bit more not so lovey-dovey as it is now. And I enjoyed spending time there, and a little bit of a reflection on your point that you mentioned there. Would Aaron today be able to speak to Aaron at 20? Not a hope. Was I interested in politics then? No. Community and people more so. I was involved in football clubs. I played soccer, most of my life, both here and in the UK. I would have held roles on committees and managed and coached teams, but would have tried to get involved at communal level when and where I could. But my late teens and early 20s would have found me traveling a lot, to be quite honest, at that period of time. But reflecting on my interest then on your second question there, as it runs over, how did I get involved in politics, or that level, my main interest in it? I came back from Scotland 2018, 2019. And look, sure, let's face it, what Irishman who in sense would have opposition viewpoints to a current sitting government, you would turn to a current opposition party, so the most Republican one, being honest, I'd have very nationalist and Republican views and values, to be quite honest with you. To summarise it, that would be it, But I do believe, in addition, in democracy. In that, I do believe in the sense that every individual at communal level, just to touch on, we might do so later on in the show, but like the taking away of local communal Garda stations and councils that has occurred down in recent years, I am in a total objection to this. Because the voice and the communal, I suppose, decision-making at grassroots level is nearly in sense removed. Let's face it, it is when things become centralised at a hub or a location at a greater point. Removing a local city council.
We're just losing the sound, yeah. Sorry, Aaron, we're just losing the sound there a small bit. Yeah. Do you want to? Yeah, that's great. You just timed out. You rubber banded a small bit there, and the camera quality dropped. So I'd say just a little drop in internet there for a second. You were about the point of, you were essentially saying you came back from Scotland and you would have nationalist Republican leanings, and you were talking about the we said power being taken away from the councils, etc. So just kind of go on from that point there.
Yeah. Right. Well, for me, yeah, I'd have the nationalist and Republican viewpoints. That's for sure. And when I did return from Scotland, as I reflected on there, I felt as though if I can do that, and what can I do? I'm not driven by money or material things. I don't drive. I've held some great positions, by the way. I've worked in hospitality and security down through the years, but I was never driven by that or motivated by it. So I was thinking at that kind of age and time, going back, sure, what would that be now, 7-8 years ago? Can I do something in my community? I'm back home in Ireland. What could I do, if anything? I'm very passionate about homelessness and mental health. I'm sure we'll certainly touch on that later on as well. But just to say that was a trigger point, that was as bad back then as it is now, as the old cliche goes. But that wouldn't be true and factual as a statement to put into today's words. But that was the case, and I presented myself to a few local officials and a few people within parties and things, and I ended up speaking to people within Sinn Féin and things like that, But look, unfortunately, they weren't for me and I wasn't for them, I think was the outcome there. And, getting to the point, Herman Kelly was doing some good work at the time, and, I'm one here that I want to make it very clear, I'm sure, throughout this conversation or any other conversation that I have at any time, whether it be with Martin or anyone publicly, I try and judge people on their merit. I don't have to automatically like anybody. I don't have to love anybody, and I often do speak and reflect on people. And, I have relationships at different levels with a lot of people within politics and the political movement and in life, of course, like us all, But I don't ever promote or condemn or over condone anything in reflection. But I just want to reflect on that through the conversation that Herman Kelly was doing some good work at the time. And I felt as though that, it was an option to join the Irish Freedom Party in Waterford. God bless her soul, Melissa O'Neill was attempting some great work at the time in Waterford that I was aware of, being from Dungarvan and Melissa being in the city, And we teamed up, in a sense, maybe not in a public eye, but, at the party level in the background for the Irish Freedom Party. And we got some good things going and a common built. And, without going into the story of that, I just think it's important to reflect on that part because it kind of accelerated at the time then when Melissa went down the route of, I believe it was like, Martin, please correct me if I'm wrong, but it was something similar to was it like a Women's National Network era or something? Or Melissa did a movement at the time.
Yeah, she was working on the movement. It had many different avenues, but that'd be a fair reflection of it. So I know Melissa. I canvassed with Melissa for IFP with Michael Leahy in Tipperary, and I would have known her. I met her quite a few times. It kills me to say that it's just so sad. Our last words before she passed in person were actually on Spaces, and they were quite harsh towards each other. So I'm carrying a small bit of guilt, but she was a fantastic, fierce woman. She was absolutely brilliant, absolutely fearless, and did great work. It's funny the amount of good people that have gone through IFP.
Yeah,
it's a bit of a conundrum. I'd say, look, same stuff. I know Herman. Herman and me have had our differences in the past. From my point of view, I put them to bed, man to man, face to face, down in Cork. So I've nothing negative to say about the man. I handed back my membership card to him, to his face, said that belongs to you. And as far as I'm concerned, that was it. But the IFP at the time was a fantastic organization. It was very, very well run. It was run professionally. I suppose in hindsight, when you look at the amount of good people that went through it, you'd kind of have to ask questions as what's going on there. It gets great people in, and nobody seems to stay for some reason.
I suppose I could touch on that briefly, and it would be, I don't want to defend anything, in my time even there. And I suppose it's great we even touch on this because it kind of does indeed come to the next point and avenue of my story in essence anyway, because as you reflected there, Martin, and thank you for doing so. Look, it did take a different few avenues, didn't it? The groups that Melissa was working with,
Mm-hmm.
But she did apply a lot of time to that and some work with the community groups in Waterford. So she pulled back a bit from the IFP, and Herman installed me in the county because it was quite a successful coming there, And like you said, it was members coming in and out, and we wanted to keep things going. So look, I was ambitious, I suppose, and energetic at the time, and I said, let's go for it. And I had some great members, I have to be honest, that worked with me. I have to truly note that, in Waterford. And we got to coming up and going, and, Luke O'Connor, of course, that we both know as well, was in Kilkenny there, and Rory O'Brien and Dahi and Jeannie. It was brilliant. Like, the Common Network was good, it was operating and starting to work, like you say, professionally and a political organisation with some great people coming in and out. But yeah, on my own story, leading on to that, look, we established a Munster committee and then national organisation, and it grew and grew and grew, as you know. And look, I just think at one point there to touch on, indeed, the reflection when you finished there, like, there has been so many people come in and out of that party in particular and others. I mean this for myself as well, by the way, Martin, because I don't know whether to say fortunately or unfortunately, I served in a couple of different groups and organizations in leadership as the leader or in leadership roles, right? And I mean that when I said no, fortunately or unfortunately, because the network, without being overly critical, or the movement, it and all of us severely lack, in my opinion, leadership, funding, equipment, everything, organization. We have great communal leaders, may I state that, by the way. There's great communal leaders up and down this country. What do I mean by that statement? What's that meant to mean? People within their communities attempting to lead their communities, operating at community level, providing community outreach or output in some way, shape, or form. That's what I mean by that. They exist up and down the country. If people don't know who or what I'm on about, I'll tell you. Contact me. There's plenty of them. They're all over the place.
Yep.
And this is not networked correctly. This is not linked together correctly. There's people out there doing 45, 65 hours a week in an office, in a room, at their house, or in their business, that they're not being paid for, that they're trying to do, work that might be activist associated political activity, community activity, call it what you will, put it under any branch or banner, but they're doing it. And look, I just don't think it's supported. I just don't think that there's enough of that networking going on. He won't talk to her because he doesn't like her shoes. And she won't talk to him because he's friends with her. And I'm afraid that part of the movement I have seen as a leadership figure inside the IFP for a number of years, at the attempts of creating my own grassroots party, and attempting to run, which I did do in a general and local election, even as a paper candidate. We all knew that not many of us would be elected. But in doing all of this, you do learn that. And I'm sure you have too, Martin. And there's a lot of this element that has to stop, because it's not going to work. We're never going to get anywhere.
So, as somebody who has been guilty of what you said,
Pardon?
I said, as someone who is, I've been guilty of what you said there. I've been guilty of,
Martin.
Somebody who has been on the other side of it. I'm not going to say victim, but you know what I mean. Had the stones thrown at them. I've a very good understanding of why people don't get along or don't like each other, but I also feel that there's some unnatural hands in there as well, because the hate, you see, there's a difference between disliking somebody and somebody going so far as to issue death threats or start looking for your address online or this kind of stuff. And
exactly.
that was a big eye opener to me, and it's happened on numerous occasions. Look, I'm sure you've been at the receiving end of it as well yourself. So the Marxist is my enemy, the communist, whatever you want to call them. You know what I mean? That's the root of most of the evil that I see in society. It's a form of cultural Marxism. It's a brainwashing. It's a lefties, whatever you want to call them. Yet, I've never, although we have a very left-leaning government and our lives are in danger because of them, but I've never been directly threatened by somebody from the leftist movement, so to speak.
No.
Yet I have.
You're lucky.
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
Look, what the Antifa people found out fairly quickly that don't, because I'm good at finding your address too.
Exactly, that occurs too, unfortunately. But look, sometimes you try and avoid that kind of crack. As you see, we came across it on the Sovereign Voyage there, a couple of times and things like that. But look, without going off the topic, I'm delighted to hear that you haven't received that too much or overly so.
No, but the point I'm making is that I've received it from our own people, that we class their own people, and that struck me as bizarre. But I mean, bile and real hatred. This isn't pretend hatred. This is actual hatred, and I'm never able to wrap my head around it, because even the worst enemies, that people that would genuinely hate me, I'll still reach out to them if I see something they post online. I did it the day before yesterday to somebody who basically is an issue with work and stuff like that. And I actually sent him a message. Look, forget our differences. This is actually something that we can work together on. As in, it's an idea that Shinadina are working on. So, like I said, it's people won't get on. You'll have a falling out. You'll argue with people in the pub, this, that, and the other. It's all nonsense. You know what I mean? It should all be forgotten about the next morning. But there's some people out there that just don't seem to be able to operate like that. They get. I find it very hard to understand, and that's why I think that there's players at play, whether they be state or other entities, that are just going around spreading rumors, dripping poison in people's ear.
We've
I don't know.
Met them, Martin. We've met them. We've been speaking to them. We've been standing in rooms with them. We know they're there. You and I both know they're there, and people need to know they're there too. And they are there.
How do you combat it? How do you combat that level of infiltration, so to speak? If you want to build
community, togetherness, communication, direction, organization. There's a number of ways. Like you can't, and you know, we can agree or disagree with, we'd say, just to mention, it's not pick on Sinn Féin Day at all, but to achieve Irish unity, you know, everyone have to pull together in directions to achieve such things as this, you know. And it's the same for any kind of a movement or an organization or a grouping or people that want to achieve something. If one person is pulling it north and the other is pulling it south and another pulling it west, it's all over the place. The energy is all over the place, you know, and this is the problem. And there's people putting, dare I say it as well, even down to finances, reflect back on the elections, like where money is being put, where people ran. There's people ran in this country where there was 6 independents ran for the same brains, same people who protested together. But yet they all didn't reflect on one another to say, do you know what? We all agree, lads, but these 2 individuals have the best chance and these 2 have the best ability to actually represent. Let's get behind them. You know, there is this argument I've often seen. Again, I won't reflect on names. I'm sure many people will know who I'm talking about when I do. There's people out there who are around this movement, and again, I'd have to mention merit. You have to respect them for their work on merit, but you have to question reasoning, where you have people out there pushing these movements, do vote, don't vote, register, deregister. You know, there's energy all over the place, and there's miscommunication and mismessaging here. And, you know, we can argue one point that there was misappropriate dealings within the election. But what if there wasn't? You know, the problem I see with the last election, as we're speaking about it, is well over 40% of the country didn't bother.
Yeah.
This is the problem. The people, and it's funny, as I reflect on that just before I pass it to you, Martin, on that point, in Waterford alone, I'm now seeing, and I have to mention this, I'm seeing on my newsfeed every day, the same as everybody else, that in my local area being Dungarvan, people giving out about the council, giving out about the councillor, or giving out about the lack of representation that is similar to 4 years ago that exists today. And I just feel like sometimes writing underneath, what is different? What do you expect to be different? You have voted in the same people in my constituency, with the exception of one, an independent for an independent occurred in my constituency. Every other seat re-elected. So what do you expect to change?
Yeah.
These people's plans, positions, manifestos, viewpoints, commitments, loyalty, all exists to that party that have that seat anyway. You just put them back in there. They're doing the same thing again. They'll continue on with the agenda, the plans, the framework that they have in place that they've been working with anyway. Does people not get this? And then the people that give out about it don't bother to vote anyway. And it's sad to say, Martin, that a lot of those people that don't bother to vote are the very people that need help and assistance. They're the very people who live maybe struggling on lines of middle class or very hardly hit. You know? And that frustrates me, as you may see in my voice, even as I speak about this, you know? This is irate for people that are out there, that really are trying 40, 60 hours a week in frontal networks or at the back in computers, whether it's in the frontal community. You get my point. There's people out there doing this. And for what? I have to ask that question. And it nearly goes back to the opening of the show, Martin. What now?
Yeah. So this is the whole concept. So you covered a lot there. Let's go back to the 40% of people who didn't vote. Now, I talk to an awful lot of people, and I talk to a lot of organizations and groups and this, that, and the other. So I've come across different organizations like the IRB, the Society of Peace, etc., that would be all for, right, the system is so banjaxed that the only way to operate is outside of the system. We're going to build our own councils. We're going to build our own networks. We're going to do it through ancient laws, etc., etc., etc. I have fantastic respect for it. My answer to them is I'm not ready for that yet. I'm almost out of the system, but I can't get out of the system yet. I haven't given up fully on the of the system being able to correct itself, or us being able to change the system from the inside, or you know, I mean, eventually I will end up just living in a cabin somewhere on my own in the woods. You know what I mean? That's probably what's going to happen. But I'm just not quite ready to give up on the current structure yet, because, like I said, it's not that it's not doable. It's that if we decided collectively that 40% of people to get out of the system, and let's say all just locate to the west of Ireland and just live quiet lives, build gated communities for ourselves, just Irish people living a very, very simple life, I don't think they'd leave us alone.
I have to agree with you. Not a hope. Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah,
they wouldn't leave you alone.
And that'd be. I just think we're not ready there from an infrastructure point of view. We wouldn't be able to protect ourselves from the from the system. So, but I like the idea. If I gave you the magic stick, right, you could actually make all those 40% of people vote, or go the other way, get 60% of people to just go, nah, we don't need your government. We're going to wall in Dublin and leave you up there. You can do what you want in Dáil Éireann, but the rest of the country is ours. If I gave you the magic stick, which way would you lean? Which way would you put your energy?
Oh.
And that's right now at this time. I'm not asking for 10 years' time. I'm not asking for
right now. That's a very difficult question, Martin, and I'll tell you as to why. I'm sure you may have seen, but some do know. There's around Ireland's Voice and the group and the community that has existed there last year or so. They've gone down very much the route of self-sufficiency and playing around with farming. There were some people who actually had that already in their lives, and in everyday operation. But they've really gone into that. So I suppose that it's a point in mentioning that look, you're asking a very kind of unique and interesting question there, because there's a lot of, let's say, operation like that going on in our own community at the moment in the southeast, shall we say, right?
Yeah.
With regards to me, I'm a bit like yourself, where I have a bit of a degree of faith. I'm joking around there. Did they get involved in the election? Did they not? I hope people see that my avenue is they probably didn't, that the answer is here at 40%. Like this is the problem. Like, at the end of the day, in Ireland, there's people who won't come forward either. Like, let's face it, I have no problem admitting I'm an open book now. Like, and I love speaking, I always did. But even in the last year, there's been lots of changes in life, and something we can touch on or even go into again in the future. Whatever, I don't want to go off topic. Like, but, I love speaking. I'm a very passionate person, and we need change, and nothing changes without change. But yet everybody's happy to kind of sit with reflection. That doesn't change anything. And this is the problem. And it irritates me, because I'm truly someone, Mary, like I have ADHD. I'm an alcoholic, by the way, a recovering alcoholic. So I have all this energy and passion, all right? So, like, I love to channel that and put it places in projects like LTT that we're going to talk about, into politics, into communities. You need to channel energy, as I'm sure we could nearly discuss again on another level. When you have all of it, you need to channel it. This is where I channel it. This is where I use it. There's a lot of people out there who lack that energy. They're disillusioned, Martin. There's a lot of people out there who have no... Look, Martin's a lovely fella there. He's working very hard with Paul and Orla and Anthony. I can see it, and I'm sure other people see it, right? They're all doing that. They're lovely people. Will you go and help them? Oh, no, I couldn't. I could never do that. Like, why couldn't you? Oh, I could never put my face there. I wouldn't talk to Martin on the video. Or people, I'd get nervous. God forgive me, these are all valid reasons, but you get my point. There's a lot of people who will use certain reasons like this. Some will be valid, some not so much so. They will just avoid it. But they will expect you, Martin, you're a lovely fella for doing it. Martin, you might be struggling in life because of what you're doing, or getting targeted, or having difficulties in areas in life that others may not even know about because of your activism. but that's okay. Martin's a lovely fella.
Mm.
You know
but just to say, there's people out there that do an awful lot more, and then there's an awful lot more people who do an awful lot less, so to speak. And I'm a firm believer is you can only do what you can do. You know what I mean? I'd never expect anybody to. You've sacrificed. I know for a fact you've sacrificed. You know, I've sacrificed. It's not for everybody, and it goes back to what I was talking about in relation to genetic memory. I believe we're compelled. I don't think we have a choice in the matter. I don't think, like I said, I'll eventually retire to the woods somewhere in a cabin, because that's what I want to do, and I've put a set time frame on how much I'm giving 15 years of my life to this. I told you before, that time is the only commodity I care about. And after that 15 years, I will have basically served my time, so to speak, and there's nothing more I can do. I will be very limited on time then in relation to, but God willing, I live that long, in relation to it, and then I'm having me time, if you know what I mean. So I've a very clear strategy set out in what I'm going to do and how long everything is going to take, from the political point of view, from the activism point of view, from the media point of view. I'm lucky that I've got a very, very tight, close team in relation to Anthony, Orla, Paul, and a few others in the background. Do you know what I mean? But out of everything else, we laugh. You know what I mean? And we have each other's backs. So it's very lucky in that sense. I'm going to segue from what we were talking about, because I want to circle back to. I do want to talk about mental health, and you mentioned alcoholism. It's something I would like to talk about, if you're okay with it, but we'll leave it towards the end. So I was talking about my team, and we've just launched a media channel, same as yourself. Tell me all about LTT Media. What does it stand for, first of all?
Let's Talk Truth.
Brilliant.
LTT, Let's Talk Truth. Look, again, something that I was kind of playing around with. You know, to be truthful, this is the third launch. I kept quiet about it for that reason. And look, is it finished? No. Are we ready for the road? Yes. Do we have a project plan? Absolutely. And is it live? Yes. There's constant work on it. So there was no major.
Just lost you there again. Just give it a second. It's just lagging a small bit. Can you hear me? You're frozen on my end, so I'm just going to check my connection on my end, and I am good. Let's double check something here. Sorry, guys. Look, it happens from time to time. Yeah, no, I'm all good. So it might be Aaron's end. So what I say to you, Aaron, if you can still hear me, sometimes I'm just going to pull you down, and I'm going to pull you back up again, and we'll see if that fixes the problem. If not, you may need to exit the studio and come back in again. I'm not even sure if you can hear me. We'll just go back again. No, okay. So it seems to have dropped on his end. So humor me, people. This is the wonderful thing about not editing. You get to see all the hiccups and things that go wrong. I'm just going to message him and tell him to. Okay, yeah. So he's dropped out of the studio. So I'm just going to message him and tell him to come back. Just come back in, and it should be fine. Bear with me a second. Yeah, he's just back in there. Excellent. So we'll add him in again. Apologies, people. It happens from time to time. For a very modern country with loads of money, our internet is still crap from time to time, isn't it?
Unbelievable.
Yeah. Mine's actually dropped, not during this, but something I was doing earlier on. And yeah, mine dropped twice today as well. Just the Wi-Fi died for a couple of seconds. There was a bit of a pause. Anyway, sorry. We'll go back to the start, because we had an interruption there. So LTT Media, Let's Talk Through.
Yeah.
So is it officially off the ground? You've got the social media websites up, etc. Have you started recording? Have you got episodes out? Are you list off all the platforms? Talk about the people involved. Talk about the concept, the idea.
Absolutely, yeah. Look, news. Anyway, straight away, we wanted to try and bring news and a different alternative. I wanted to try and bring global and Irish and maybe live local news. A little bit. I love social media. I love linking websites. I love working in that aspect of things. So I said, could we come up with a concept or a plan that we could do that at local and national level, possibly even global level? Can that be done? The answer is it can be done. How we're going to do it, we have figured out, but it's management, of course. And as you mentioned earlier on, Martin, time and help and all of these things come into play. There's a load of amazing things that can be done in life across the board, but you do need help and assistance in a number of ways to get them done. But that can be done. It is being done. It is live and active, to answer that one. We would be like yourselves, of course, doing great work at your own media projects. Like look at doing podcasts, but in a little bit of a different manner, to be quite honest. A little bit more rapid and bullet in a radio, maybe interview segment type to speak, and maybe not visually. For us, maybe we mightn't be able to keep up to speed at that level. But that would be the targeted aim with daily blogs, news, updates, items, things like that. And breaking news. There's a radio segment there that we would love to feature and fill in with things like with exactly your own show, Martin. Different elements that could continuously replay on an internet radio. Yes, an internet radio, but we would like it housed and servered and networked and ran right, that it wouldn't be dropping, wouldn't be having glitches or problems. But we do see that as being feasible. We do see that as being feasible and operable, I suppose, maybe 8-10 hours a day, should the people be willing to operate it or get involved in it. That's very, very feasible and there. And then the live centres is a massive thing we're working on at the moment. It's giving us some problems, believe it or believe it not. It sounds easy because it is easy. There's a couple of news centres and networks that have it. But there's a couple of features that we want to bring into it. One of which, there are no secrets, i.e. being the airport, we're close here in Cork. And a couple of things that we want to branch in differently with the media or directly. And we're doing so, but it's just causing a problem or two on the internet. So we've taken down our Cork Live update page, but that will return. And then at the moment, just on workload, we'll stick to national after that. Family, friends, our own network would be very much linked to Cork and Waterford. So, of course, our own hub is aiming back at that with LTT2. But, of course, driven to nationally and to a European audience, we'd love to see, and especially with the likes of the Wine Wednesdays, Martin. That is one of the first
great title
shows. Wine Wednesdays.
It's brilliant. It's a brilliant title. I don't know the lady involved, but I saw it when it first came up, and I was there. That was smart. Whoever came, that's just a very, very, very catchy title. It's very, very good.
Thank you, Martin.
That's good stuff. It's very good. It's a lovely play on words, and it'll attract a certain audience who get the humor of the title, but it sounds good. Yeah. And I would think it's going to be a nice conversation piece, where, yeah.
It is. Sorry, Martin, I interrupted you there, but that piece itself has even changed nearly in concept or shape since it started. Fiona's doing a great job with it. It is indeed a conversational piece, and there are interview segments, majority that have been recorded already. There's 2 episodes out. And in that feature, it had Moni Dudek from County Waterford speaking about autism. Basically, she's speaking as a mum and dealing with a child with autism, the challenges and issues faced, I suppose, in everyday life, Martin, to summarise it, and it's well broken down. Speaking to Fiona, you mentioned you may not know her yourself. Fiona McCormack is the host of Wine Wednesdays, again, a former candidate herself. She actually also featured on Virgin Media's Dinner with the Enemy.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, I didn't know that. I never watched. I saw the clips of that show, but I never. I because I don't do television or mainstream media or anything like that. I actually miss a lot of good, because that was actually supposed to be quite good.
It was. And believe it or not, in our own community, we were very fortunate enough to have Dermot Collins and Fiona feature on the show,
Yeah.
And it was great for them, to get out. They've done some great work in the background of our own community at Ireland's Voice, and indeed in their own communities. I know Dermot is very passionate about the first subject that came up on Wine Wednesdays, being autism within the community in Carlow, where he lives. He'd be interested to even speak to Martin because of what they're kind of, I suppose, experiencing on that number in such a small area in Carlow, basically, is the point I'm making. But Fiona ran as a candidate, was indeed on Dinner with the Enemy. So was Dermot. We were very fortunate, but unfortunately, Dermot was booted off on the first episode and replaced by the Three Bucks. The Three Bucks in the second episode. Stephen Kelly came in, better known as the Three Bucks.
Yeah, no. Okay, how or why did that happen?
Well, it was the format, and it was the format of the show. Number one, we obviously no one knew it was going to happen. Dermot, Fiona, myself. Well, I was out of it. I was delighted to have the crack with the lads as they were preparing, coming up to it, but they couldn't speak. I myself filmed with them in previous years, so I kind of knew the procedure, and you can't talk, you can't do anything anyway.
Yeah.
But we had a great crack with the lads when they were doing it, But yes, unfortunately, Dermot he featured in the first showing and a bit of the second, and then was unfortunately eliminated or removed or whatever the hell happened there.
I didn't realize it was like that type of reality TV where you're voting people off. Or I didn't realize. I had no idea.
There's some interesting characters on it, Martin. If you haven't seen it, believe me, it's well worth the watch. And it's 4 or 5 characters from the so-called right side, and then 4 or 5 characters from the so-called left side. Let me be honest and tell you that is not the way it appears, and that's not the way it comes across. And it's very good entertainment. It's very good listening. Even if you can't watch it, you can listen to it in the background. It's quite good. But look, delighted to see Fiona stay the entirety of the series. Basically, it was fantastic.
Very good.
She did end up staying the whole series, and she put some great points across. There's some great discussion points that come up at the table throughout the series, and a lot of people have their viewpoints. And I think some more of these projects should be done, Martin, because
in previous projects I've invited lefties and people with kind of some more socialist leaning ideas on to have a conversation, and nobody's ever reciprocated. Nobody's ever, and it's a case of it's like this. It's not an argument. It's just a conversation. I'm not trying to sell you my ideas. I want to hear what your ideas are, and then I want to have a discussion about it. And of course, if I think something is ridiculous, then I'm going to query you on it, and I'm going to ask you to. But yeah, they don't. For the most part, they don't like conversation. They don't like to be questioned. They don't like to have to. Everything I say, I have to prove, so to speak, or I have to be able to do it. Now, because I'm involved in politics, I've actually written policies in relation to some of the stuff I talk about. So I go, no, I actually have the facts and the figures, and this is how we would do it, and it's actually going to take this amount of time, and we'll need to divert resources from here. So you know what I mean? So, but there's a huge amount of stuff I don't know, and obviously I'm not in a position to talk about. I can give an opinion, but I couldn't debate or argue a point because I just don't have the knowledge base. Just in relation to, because we're talking about that show, is it Dining with the Enemy or Eating with the Enemy? Yeah. Who is your enemy?
My enemy? Oh, well, that's a good one. I don't know, do I have any? I'm sure I do, Martin, but do I see myself as having any? No. A year or two ago, would I have? Absolutely. Who would it have been then? I don't know. Antifa?
Think about it. So I'm not talking about an individual. I'm talking about we'll say the systems. So I can quite happily say the state of Ireland, and I mean this from every fibre of my being. I mean this. The state of Ireland is my enemy. I am a son of the nation of Ireland. The state of Ireland is my enemy. It declared war on me early 2000 when it said, I am no longer worth or treated the same as my countrymen and women because I have the ability to read and not take a medical experiment as far as I'm concerned, blindly or willingly. But the state told me I was lesser than everybody else because of that, and they took away my inalienable rights, my right to travel, my right to provide for myself. Well, actually, they didn't, because I worked technically in healthcare at the time, or healthcare manufacturing. So I had to go to work every single day. I didn't get any payments or anything like that, or basically I was traveling to and from work. Yet outside of that, the state told me, well, you can't leave your house, or you can't do this, or you can't do that. So they declared war on me. So I've no problem saying this publicly, proudly. The state of Ireland and its mechanisms and instruments are my enemy. and
Yes.
will remain so until it's changed dramatically or removed completely. So that's how I'm phrasing the question, so to speak, as in who is your enemy?
With your explanation there, I can safely say and understand as to why. Yes, and I'd have to agree with your explanation. When I look at it in the frame of an enemy or that form, for me, I don't like trying to think about that. I used to be a very negative thinker, man, and like for me, I try not to look who is our enemy. I fully understand why you said what you said and why they would be your enemy. Believe me. Um, would they be mine? Well, I suppose if you were to reflect back on your statements there, well, then they would, wouldn't they? Because that's true. And they did indeed do the same to me. They did the same to our brothers and sisters across the country. And they did the same, if you could reflect on my previous statements, across Western Europe. So this has happened. And it's what are we going to do now? What now, as we say? We go back to it again. And that is the constant question. And we need to come up with solutions, because that's another part of it for me, that when we discuss things like this, the deaths was always a big thing, right? With the coming in Waterford, okay, this came up every month, every 2 weeks, everywhere we went across the Waterford city, across markets or anything we were involved in a community level in Dungarvan or further afield. Everyone was saying, like, is there any questions about this? Like, is there anyone going to answer to this? Like, how many deaths occurred in Ireland from 2020 to whatever, still occurring now, but how many deaths occurred during that period of time? Because of the lack of or professional ability or care during and or for cancer care, dialysis, whatever it is. Where are these numbers? Who has them? Who's accountable for this? Who said don't give this person dialysis and close down this ward and open it for this reason? Who's made all these decisions? Who's accountable here? And where are the figures? I'm looking for certain figures that I don't want to get too much far into there now, but they are related to suicide, to be quite honest. I can't find some of these figures.
Mm-hmm.
And I certainly can't find them when I start filtering it out and wanting to find out certain or defined figures in area. They're impossible to find.
Yep.
This is just not acceptable. This is also why we need media that will bring this to public attention. There's people here in Cork City, and this is again not to reflect on my own local area. This could reflect anywhere with rivers. I was, delighted to spend time on the Shannon with the lads for the Sovereign Voyage and got to see many, many beautiful places along the Shannon, along our beautiful country. And this is it's not been taken, in my opinion, serious, or it's not being addressed. And that's it's my opinion that this is all way too wayward.
So, are you talking about what's not being addressed? Is the fact that you can't get government data that they intentionally make? Are you talking about the massive problem of mental health in this country and male suicide, especially in a certain demographic of males who are, it's kind of the 30 to 50 bracket.
Yeah.
They're the numbers are absolutely through the roof, and
you could say, Martin, I was talking about the figures in which we were reflecting on, but in hindsight, you could actually say I was talking about both, because it applies to both. Mm-hmm. And that is the truth of it, unfortunately, and you have nailed it. The bracket is in the late 20s, 30s, up to 50 that these people are dying in, and that is the truth of it. And it is males, mental health. There is issues to this. There's problems to this. I believe in some way there's stigma associated to this. There's often relationship breakdowns associated to this, drink and drugs associated to this, children, lack of alienation associated to this, and this is not discussed. It's not discussed in certain parts of Ireland. I still think and believe in 2026 that there is still stigma attached to this, or the male mind still believes that this is the case and doesn't want to discuss it. And I'd also have to say that there's a lack of services there anyway for the individuals who do want to discuss it in the first place.
So I can tell you hand on heart, I'm a little bit older than you. And it's so, and I joke about this. I don't deal with problems. I don't discuss problems. I put them all in the bottle, and I keep shoving and stuffing the bottle down and stuffing it down and stuffing it down and stuffing it down. And then I go for a drink, and I don't drink huge amounts, but I'm fond of a pint of black. And then I have one person that I will go and speak to after I've had a couple of drinks, and it probably happens to me maybe once every 2 or 3 months, and every bit of it comes out. And I'm blessed. I'm blessed. I have that one person that will sit and listen to me, and all of that emotion coming out. And then I just start the cycle again. And I just
Yeah.
go, keep shoving it down into the bottle, shoving it down the bottle until the bottle is full, and the bottle does get full. And I just pray that I'm close enough to that person that I can get to them and sit and talk about it. Is that healthy? Of course it's not. You should be talking about this stuff all the time and not letting it build up. But and again, I'm only speaking personally, I wouldn't be able to function as a human if I dealt with emotions every single day.
Mm-hmm.
I just couldn't do it. My life is too difficult. It's unfair because hectic, busy, difficult, whatever you want to say. I've had a lot of changes over the last the last couple of years in relation to work and life and stuff like that. And there's a marriage ending for 25, a long 25-year marriage, and then I had to relocate because of work and stuff like that. So there's a lot of stuff going on. I, as a man, would not be able to function if I had to think about that every single day. Now, how do you go about change? And most men would be the same. I would say it's the same thing. You just get on with it. You just deal with it. But everybody has a breaking point, and some people they could be, that bottle could be filling for 10, 15 years.
Yeah.
And when it comes out, it's just it's not doable. You can't deal with it. You can't manage it. You can't this, that, and the other. How do we, without weakening men? Because this is the other thing. We're not supposed to be soft. We're supposed to be hard. We're supposed to be resilient. We're supposed to be tough, because we mind the cave. We keep the fierce animals from the door. So where's the balance where it's okay to show a little bit of softness, but you cannot become effeminate, so to speak?
Yeah, where is it? It's a tough one. I like your point that we are masculine, we are seen as protectors, we are that male energy and figure, a man, so to speak, in every definition of the word. It is a tough one for me when you mentioned there, something that I just know, and I don't mean to be personal on that one, but when you're saying, like, I just see things when it comes to, we'd say, feelings wise or problems wise. I've definitely reflected on this back in my own life. I've seen it with other individuals, friends, acquaintances I've worked with in many levels down through the years. The little chipping effect or the little mark, whether you discuss these things or not, want to or not, that's gone in there. That's in the heart and the soul anyway. And you can leave it there for 3 months, 3 years. That's there. That mark, that chip off the stone, that mark is there. It's on you. It's affected you. It's happened. And you can acknowledge it and then kind of try and knock it away and say, I don't want to accept it, but it's still going to be there. It's like having a radio signal booming in and deciding whether to accept it or not. But look, and I find that tough. And there, I believe in a way, maybe I'm describing what you might do or go through on a daily basis. If that came, just reflect it and pass it away because you don't want to accept it, or you don't want to accept it right now. I'm not saying you're not accepting it, because you've evidently said you may do so 3 months down the line to a friend or something. But this is the problem in society, and I think you again nailed it very well when you say, like, when all of these additions come into play, it is like that champagne bottle, and it's going to blow the top off of it. And a lot of people would either commit a crime, commit an assault, go drinking, take drugs, harm themselves, and harm someone else, God forbid. We've touched on it. Something will happen, and out of their character or nature, and most often than not, if it's contributed by a bottle-fed blow-up, where it's continuous. It can take people having 3 months of problems. They can have a mental breakdown. They can have a turning to drink drugs or alcohol. Some other people, it can go on for 13 years, and it can go on for major amounts of time. People differ, and I've definitely seen that in life. But when it comes to aspects of men like that, I must be honest, when you're saying me, I'd like to believe that I'm pretty masculine. I'm a man. I don't like to be aggressive. I'd like to believe direct most of the time. But there's another part of me that I definitely would like to believe that I'm empathetic. I'm sympathetic. I don't want to say soft, but like there's a part of me that, like, I do like, spending time with my daughter. I do enjoy, there's certain things that some people may or may not think that I enjoy, or would look at me as a character and say that he definitely doesn't do these things. you know? But like, I definitely think that, can we define it? I suppose, where am I going with? I'm really taking your words in here in my mind as I'm speaking, and I'm there like, can we actually define it? Is your method wrong? Who said your method is wrong? If I was to say what I think they should do, am I right? Maybe. Is it different? But I suppose to reflect on self, and a bit similar to yourself, with great honesty, and you know that not a lot of people would do what you just don't know what I'm about to do. But like, when you reflect on self with our topic and question in theory, right? You could go back to maybe myself, would say, in a rehab situation there last year, right? Some of those people didn't change, didn't get anywhere within their own rehabilitation until they accepted that that change was needed and required, and that they had the problem or issue or feeling or whatever it was they had in the first place. And you see, unfortunately, with deflection or reflection or constant refusal, that is not taking place. Now, to live daily life, who says someone is wrong in using that technique or method to get through daily life? I can't say anyone is wrong in that. But what I can say, just from my own example, I saw those individuals. I saw some stumble at step 2. I saw some make it to step 22 very, very quickly. You get my point. But the ones that struggled were honestly the ones that refused to accept that problem, the issue, the feeling, whatever it was actually there at all. Or that they actually had to do what they had to do to change or needed said change in the first place. And until that is there, a bit like the Irish people with the government, Martin.
It's a good analogy. Okay, so I love what you're saying there, and I love that you are. I can't think of the right word, but the fact that you can say that not everything works for everybody, but it's all about self-reflection and figuring out yourself. The Aaron Joyce that was looking in the mirror, let's just say a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, versus who you saw this morning.
Mm-hmm.
How different? How much growth? How are you a very, very different person after going through that process, or is it, as you said, you just accepted what the problem was and went through the process?
I accepted what problems were, and that's important that we come to this point in the story, because like there was problems in life, not a problem, which was an issue in itself, you know. Like dealing with certain elements, like at that particular time in life, there was a lot of death threats, violence. There was a lot of things going on at political level that a lot of people wouldn't have been aware on your, God forgive me, I don't mean to be rude, on social media platforms where people are moaning and all this kind of thing going on.
Yeah.
People don't know. And that sometimes kind of annoys me too, Martin, where you have people that believe that they know everything that's going on a political or a communal level, or they're involved with this group and that group, but on social media they are.
Yeah.
But they don't know anything that's actually going on in reality. And that's I've seen that, man.
The real world, the real world isn't happening on social media. It's a useful tool. The real world happens on the streets, and it happens in alleyways, and it happens in forests, and it happens in private meetings and smoky rooms and this, that, and the other. Just people. The real world is a scary, scary place with scary people, and this is the reality. So that, like, you're kind of saying indirectly or possibly directly that, like, activism and politics.
Yeah, there was a big part to play in that.
Affected your mental health.
Unbelievably so. And one day in question, sure, look, we all know what day it was. There was threats, and like one thing that would happen often would be phone calls, and this would go back as far as the IFP, Martin. You know, Herman Kelly. It was procedure, in fairness to Herman Kelly at the time, that these were identified and obviously highlighted at our Corla level when I joined the Corla of the IFP. And I must say, regrettably, very, very quickly, when I was a figure on the IFP of the Ard Corla, this did indeed take place. Calls from Dublin-related numbers, Belfast or English-related numbers where threats would take place. I remember actually within my first 6 to 8 weeks with the IFP, Herman Kelly's house was red bricked. You know, there was these incidences taking place, which I don't condone, man. I'm all for, you know, fighting with your mouth, or God forbid, if you have to fight with your fist to defend it, at one point you do it. But like, you fight it honorably, and like I don't believe there's an awful part of me, and again we're spending great time on a lot of topics and throwing a lot of things around, and I don't want to be going off and up in the air on things, but this is where I'm sure we could go later on in the show of bridging the divide a bit, because not only in the Catholic or Protestant sense, I see that in a left and a right sense too, to a degree. Because this is not going to work, man. Like, this is what I get confused, where I see a lot of great political or potential political leaders out there who are speaking from their heart with passion, and this guy has it, man. You know, this guy, he's in touch. He knows what he's on about. Then he'll come up with a policy, or he'll say something else, and he kills it. Because you haven't thought about what you're saying or what you're trying to implement. What you said is brilliant. What you're trying to do or you're thinking, brilliant. When you go to execution, solution, or function, you're out the window. This is where people need people. It's where people need each other. There's people have different strengths. This is a big problem of ours, Martin, and I see it across.
It's a management. Look, I have a business background, so I look at everything through management techniques I would have learned over 30 odd year career. We have a management problem, and the problem is that some of the people with the best ideas are the, let's just say, maybe the face, or they're high enough profile to actually be able to influence or attract people and stuff like that. They've no management skills, and they don't know how to manage people. They're surrounded by assets. They don't know what to do with them. So, like, I would say these people should be, look, if they want to keep title, they want to keep this, that, and the other. Yeah, go away. You can be the party face. You can be the party leader, and like that. This guy here has been working for a high-end company for 20 years. He's handled, million euro contracts, etc., etc., etc. He knows how to manage people. He knows how to spot talent and identify resources. And until we look at it as coldly as that, at the end of the day, politics is business. You're selling a product. The product just happens to be ideas, policies, etc., etc., etc. You're still selling a product. It's about marketing. It's about packaging. It's about making it palatable, and to actually look. The biggest thing is, if you can get a ball of shit and sell it as gold, you've made it in things. Now you're saying, is that dishonest? Of course it is. Politics isn't supposed to be honest. I need to write a policy where I have to. This is just an example. I have to say that we're going to have to deport people, and we're going to have to deport families because they came here illegally and they broke our law, and I have to go back and change some laws. You know what I mean? For the social cohesion and the future of my people. You know, I'm not going to write it like that. I'm going to write it in a sense that makes sense to people. That, well, actually, this person came here illegally, and guess what? If you're caught speeding, you get a fine and you get penalty points. So these people actually came here illegally. So I'm going to do the same to them. I'm going to punish them the same way I punish you, and I'm going to make it extremely fair and extremely open and honest. You know, and again, you're selling all the time. You have to sell ideas. You know, you talked about the left-right divide. I again don't believe that's natural. I believe it's extremist on the far right and it's extremist on the far left.
Absolutely.
In my head, politics is a circle, and it doesn't matter how far left, right you go, you end up in the same place. You know, it is the same place. It's totalitarianism. It's dictatorship. It's loss of civil liberty, and usually it ends in starvation. That's the big thing. That no matter how far left or right you go, millions of people starve to death. Simple as that. Excuse me. So in politics, I've no issue with socialist policies as long as they're not abused, and as long as I'd be libertarian at heart. I just want to be left alone. That's not good enough at the minute, because what's happening in the present, it will affects my children, who are all nearly adults. Some have 2 adult children and one that's nearly an adult, but their future has been denied, and that happened on my watch. I didn't see it happening. I was too busy trying to keep my mortgage paid and, you know, keep show on the road and all this kind of stuff, and all the excuses we use. But the reality is, it happened on my watch, and my generation's watch. I have to fix it. I have to do something to ensure that the life that my parents gave me, I can hand that to my kids, which was basically, you could live on one income, you could own a home, you could live a reasonably comfortable life. Yeah, yes, you had to work hard, and you normally have to do that between 20 and 30, make a name for yourself or whatever. But outside of that, then you should be comfortable enough that, you know, you can keep 2 cars on the road. You're not struggling and scraping and scrimping. Now, I was never wealthy, but I was for the most part, comfortable. As we joke, one bad car breakdown away from poverty. That's where I would have been all my life. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
A 800 to 1,500 euro car bill would have, knocked us back into the red, so to speak. But that life is fine. It's good. I think we're a better people when we're under a little bit of pressure. I
I
think
agree.
money was bad for us as a people, and I think that comfort, that 3 holidays a year and 2 extra bedrooms in the house, and the extra this, that, and the other, it got people into massive amount of debt, and I believe debt is fear. It's the fear that they use to keep you in keep you in line. I think that was bad for us as a people. What would your thoughts on that be? That we're actually better when we struggle a little bit. We're actually better humans to each other. We're friendlier. We've more community. We've more everything when we've
Yeah,
less.
I again have to agree. As someone that grew up, you know, not a hell of a lot. My parents worked very hard. Of course they did. I had everything I needed as a child. There's no doubt about that. But getting a phone at 15 or 16, not at 8 years of age like they're getting them today, or getting it out of communion or confirmation money or whatever the case was, or, PlayStation. I think I owned my first PlayStation in my late teens, I think. My son had one when he was 6.
Yeah.
Like,
We just had a pause there again. It should come back. Aaron, if you can hear me, we'll just do the same thing again. I'm going to remove you down, and if I put you back up, it might come back, and it hasn't. So yeah, just the same thing again. Just leave the studio and come back in. Yeah. So just while waiting for Aaron to come back, yeah, it is that thing about what Aaron was talking about, kids having too much phones and PlayStations and stuff like that. But as parents, what we want to do is we want to spoil our kids, and we want to give them what we never had growing up, or give them a better experience. But there was a payoff, or sorry, payoff is the wrong word. There was a cost to doing that. Is that because we gave our kids so much, they value so little, and that is a problem. And when you have this society that's running on mobile phones, everything, it's about instantaneous gratification, and that instantaneous gratification is a bad thing. It's bad in people my age and older, and it's very, very bad in youth, because it means they don't value things, they don't appreciate things. And if you go down that route, you will eventually get to the point where you don't value life. And again, that doesn't bode well for older generations. If you have a younger generation that doesn't value anything anymore, especially life, it means that those people that are supposed to care for you when you do get older, they mightn't be there. They might be happy to hand you over to some entity or organization that will do that job for them. I'm just going to message Aaron again, tell him to pop back in. Hopefully it's just internet as opposed to anything catastrophic. Yeah, he's coming back in a second now. Just the laptop. I think his laptop shut down them. So we'll just wait until he pops back into the studio, and we shall continue. Just while waiting for him to come back, I'll just put the shout out there. If anybody it doesn't matter who you are, what you are, where you are, if anybody's interested in having one of these conversations, and like I said, they're long form conversations with no real, it's not structured, so to speak. It's just two human beings speaking to each other about whatever. Aaron and me would have some commonality in relation to, we both were in the same political party at different points, and we're both kind of in the nationalist activism roles and stuff like that. But anyone at all that wants to ever come on and have a conversation, and it's not about an argument. There's no one right, there's no one wrong. It's literally just two humans talking to each other. Please just hit me up. My social media, all my DMs are open, so you can DM me on X, you can DM me on Facebook, you can message me on TikTok. If you ever want to want to have a conversation. I record on Sundays and Mondays. So anytime that I normally try and get 2 or 3 done per day. So I normally have 4 or 5 done in any given weekend. So if you are ever free on a Sunday or a Monday, and want to spend an hour and a half of your time talking, then please feel free to reach out. Aaron's back there now.
Martin, someone doesn't want us talking about it.
We have this in the show from time to time, and we joke about it. We say there's a certain word you can't say, or certain people you can't talk about, or whatever. We didn't do that, but we have that technique. When I used to do the show live, this used to happen the odd time. I remember doing an interview with Orla during the elections last year, and it just cut off. It just couldn't get her back on, and it is what it is. I'm okay at monologues. I was chatting away to the imaginary audience that may be listening in the future. I actually went into a monologue about you were talking about kids getting PlayStation at 6, and I kind of started talking about when because we obviously want to give our children everything, because that's what being parents are. You want to give them more than we had. Yeah. But there's a cost to that, in relation to that the more you give, the less they appreciate, and that we'll get to a point where the youth, especially because of mobile phones, and everybody is living with this 6-second memory. You know, I don't know if you know about the 6-second algorithm on TikTok or Facebook or anything like that, or, you know, the first 6 seconds, that's all people. 6 seconds gone, 6 seconds gone, 6 seconds gone, and they're just flicking to the next story. But if you continue that way, where young people don't appreciate anything and they've got these 6-second memories, they'll eventually get to the point where they don't care about humans, and they'll be so desensitized to everything that, you know, your lovely little Johnny or Mary that you gave the PlayStation to won't give a crap about you when you need them to actually reciprocate, and you're elderly and you need help going to the toilet, or you need help going into the climbing the stairs and all this kind of stuff. They'll just come and they'll just subcontract it out to the cheapest or whatever. We may even get to the stage where they'll just say, get in the suicide machine there, mom and dad, will you? It's for the greater good. And that's the risk, and that's what's been indoctrinated into youth today. It's this don't care about anything. It's nihilistic. It's soulless. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'd have to say I do. Once again, have to agree with a lot of your points and thoughts on that, and in particular with education, of course. You know, in particular with the changes that are occurring around. You know, with myself, I mentioned the sovereign voyage earlier on there. You know, and I certainly would be against changes to the curriculum and education that would involve sex education.
Remind everybody about the sovereign voyage, and who was that? Ross was there. Who else was
Ross.
in it?
Ross and Andy. Andy Haseman, Ross LaHive. Now there was loads there. Like God, Dave the charity. God, it was some experience, to be quite honest with you. It was brilliant. You know, Margot was there as well. Anita Ward. Who else was there? God, I won't be able to credit everybody. I know Peter Madden was up there as well, but I don't think I was there at the start when he was there. I was doing something else in Waterford. I came a bit way through the first week.
It was a fantastic concept, and I know most of the people that were on it, and they were just absolutely.
Alan Sweeney.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, I keep shouting names at you now, Martin. They keep coming to my head. Look, there was a lot of people that would have been friendly or like-minded or whatever throughout the movement, I suppose, where that Andy and Ross were, I suppose, to credit both of them, you know, not just one of them. I know Ross is to his credit, you know, was, let's face it, I think and believe the one that started the library campaign there in Cork City regarding that. But the Sovereign Voyage was something, of course, Andy was doing previously. And it was just that year, they kind of both, in essence, combined. It was just at that time of the year, it felt right. You know, it was just great to get involved. But there was some great people. I'm definitely leaving out names and everything of people that helped us. There was major things that happened around it that, let's just say, we won't say too much of. But there was people that helped out, and they were absolutely legends.
I've heard one or two of the stories. It was a fantastic concept. Would you think it'll ever be done again?
I know Andy certainly will do another Sovereign Voyage. I think wasn't the one beforehand with Dara Flaherty, I believe, in Galway. I think the concept of a change is a bit. The voyage is the voyage, but I think Andy is planning to do something. I haven't spoken to Andy quite some time, and I can't speak for Andy, of course, but my belief or understanding would be that, of course, he'll continue with the voyage, but it may not necessarily be around the indoctrination, of children.
Different, same voyage, different message.
I would believe so, Martin. You know, and it was a great experience. And look, it was a shocking experience for me to walk into libraries up and down the country and pick up a book that had Grinder in it in an 8-year-old section of the library. That was a shocking experience.
Mm.
And that's the truth of it. And listen, I watched Ross like many other people did watch Ross. I had great time for Ross down through the years, of course, as I still do today. And they've faced a lot of challenges, Ross Lahive, and indeed my own partner, Margot Mills, regarding the library and regarding what has happened, you know. And then Steve McGill as well, by the way. There's other people there that could be spoken about that are named publicly and known publicly for a stance taken as an adult, as a male or a female adult, that suggests or opposes that the position of this book in said library is wrong. Somebody who kind of has a problem with that would want to really reflect on the thoughts of their own mind. If they feel as though that a book that pushes, promotes Grindr, an over 18 gay adult dating app that appears by wording, by link message in a book, I don't care. How and why does it appear in a children's section of a library is what I want to know. And legally, how in the name of sweet Lord God can you promote a gay app to children in a child section of a library? I have a lot of questions.
I can give you the answer. It's a UN directive. It's in a UN document. That UN document is fed into our education system and is approved by government. And it's like this is happening. This is one where it is genuinely outside influence. Obviously, our best little boys in class up in Dáil Éireann are signing off and all this stuff, but a lot of this stuff actually bypasses the Dáil. I don't know, do a lot of people realize that? Like the Dáil of Ireland has very little power. Like the EU, the UN, and all of these other alphabet agencies communicate directly with the councils and with senior civil servants. A lot of this stuff doesn't even go near Leinster House. Straight into Waterford Council or Kerry Council or Tipperary Council or wherever it is. There's your instructions. Make sure that happens, or it goes directly to the departments and bypasses the minister altogether. The senior civil servants in this country are the real power in this country, not the Johns and Marys that you elect. They need to be held accountable, but there's a whole hierarchy way above them and below them that are making all of this this happen. So. Have we reached peak woke? We're talking about gender ideology now and trans, etc. I think the worst of it has passed. I think there's a decline now in people got fatigue. You hear the term black fatigue and crime fatigue, and I think we've got rainbow fatigue now. Do I just have a short memory, and because all the rainbow people go to sleep and hibernate for the winter? Is it a case that you don't see them because we're still out and about in the dark evenings? Is it just a case they're gone to sleep for a while, and as soon as it gets a little bit warmer and they can dress in their whatever they dress in, they'll all be out again? They'll come out from under the rocks.
Yeah, I think you could be right, Martin. I think something along those lines, will probably be the case. Look. Do you know, it's funny you mentioned this, right? I not to touch on the Sovereign Voice, to touch about some of the great characters that we know within the movement, right? Dave Riley. I had a great conversation with Dave one night. I don't know why I feel like I need to talk to you about it now, Martin, but it's probably a good point.
I interviewed him. I interviewed him last year, I think.
But Dave, right? And it was like something you just said triggered this in me. And another famous figure within, we'd call it, I know you refer to them as lefties, and I quite respect that. There's a lot of people within the movement that would call them a lot worse, right? But when I look at it, isn't it Gemma that we had a little bit of an altercation with above in Athlone there in Longford or whatever? We were followed around the place by the lunatic of a woman anyway, right? But Dave was shared with us in a campsite one night, and this actually struck me, Martin, and this is where I'm going with it. Like, there's a lot of these people that would have protested going back as far as the late 80s, going back as far to the early 90s, and up as far as we'll just say, and we'll call it at this one, maybe the water charges, right? Mm-hmm. They all protested together. They were on the same side. And then all of a sudden, shortly after we'd say the water charges is just the play mark that I'm using, Martin, okay? Yeah. Just to go from. A year or two after water charges, people on the same side, going back to the early and late 80s, protesting in every part and nook of this country for many and varied reasons. are now shouting at each other from the separate sides of the road. I witnessed this. I stood on separate sides of the road. I just didn't know who some of these people were, but I was standing with some people who stood with those people 20 years ago, 10 years ago, 6 years ago, but no longer stand with them anymore.
It's interesting you say water charges, and it is the last time that the country was unified against the state, and the state decided that's never happening again. And this is how government works. You can see this in America. You can see it in all the European countries. They create the divide intentionally. It's social engineering. They have nudge units. They have all the tools to do this, but they create the divide because divided we fall. It's as simple as that. And we are falling. And I suppose those who are more indoctrinated to either left or right or middle or whatever it is, the second you decide to stop, the second you decide you're right, you've already lost. It's as simple as that, because I'm not right. My opinion changes daily. My knowledge base changes daily. I can't say what, like I said, I'm libertarian at heart. I just want to be left alone. But in relation to politics, it changes daily, because when I get a new piece of information and or I see a country doing something, implementing policy, going, Jesus, that's a great idea. I could tweak that, and that might actually work in Ireland. You know what I mean? But that could be from a completely left-leaning socialist government. You know what I mean? You have to, like I said, the only place I can't find good is in any form of communism, any form of Marxism. I can find no good to take out of that. But every other single political we'll say idea on the spectrum, I can find good everywhere. I can find good in National Socialism. I can find good in libertarianism. I can find good in capitalism. I can find good in as many, whatever name you come up with, I would be able to find good in it, with the exception of communism. I can't find anything beneficial in relation to Marxist ideology. But that's the thing. We're throwing stones at each other across the road and across the divide, when at the end of the day, the most of us, you're always going to have that small little 5% on each side that are just they're your extremists, they're your whatever, they're the lonely, broken people, whatever you want to call them. They're never going to change. The other 90% of us actually just want to survive. We want to get on. We want to live our lives, have a few pints, go to the GA match, make sure our kids are safe. It doesn't matter. But there's definitely a fear in people who are, let's just call them kind of left of center, even though they know uncontrolled immigration is a bad idea. Mass immigration is a bad idea for socioeconomic reasons, safety reasons, etc. You can list off all the reasons it's a bad idea. It also affects them because importing cheap labor naturally drives down your wages and your social standing. Yeah. As people are very aware of that, but they're afraid to say it out loud. And I can tell you can't say it out loud. If you're working for a large multinational now, if you're in the Google offices, or you're working for GSK, or you're working for Boston Scientific or Abbott or any of these large multinationals, if you dare say anything that doesn't go with the program, so to speak, open borders, mass migration, LGBTQ, etc., you are out that door. They will sack you like that, like in a heartbeat. It won't even. Yeah. So you have to ask. So is the divide fixable when one side isn't brave enough to stand up and say there is actually a problem?
Is it brave enough to stand up and say there's actually a problem? Which side, yeah. Martin? Sorry, I just missed that.
I'm saying that because there's a certain demographic that would fall into the centre to centre left category in this country, that they primarily vote. You're Fianna Fáil voters, you're Fine Gael voters, they're the people who are electing the current crop of politicians. They're very aware of the issues, yet they will not stand up and talk about it out loud. They might quietly have a conversation in the pub or, this kind of thing, but they won't stand up in large numbers and say, well, actually, this is wrong. You know what I mean? There's social housing in my area that, I've just noticed there's 20 houses and 19 of the houses have Indian families in them now, and yet, there's, fucking 100 families on the social housing list. That people won't, they know it's wrong, but they won't say it out loud. How do you give people the courage to do it, or how do you how do you frame it in such a way that it's acceptable for people to say out loud, and they
Well,
don't have
it's
to suffer
tough.
consequences?
It's tough, Martin. It's tough because, like, for me, I see a lot of people who might believe or think what we may believe or think in a lot of views, shall we say, right? And it's their belief that if they express that at work, to family, or in other ways, that there is, again, I suppose I could bring in the word, that stigma, questioning, theory based, whatever, thinking behind some of this, when indeed it is not the case. It's funny we go to this level in conversation because there's a part of me that thinks, right, I don't like we're all equal, we're all human, we're all brothers and sisters, we all have different capabilities. I do believe that, but what I'm trying to get at is there's people in life that I do believe see what we see, know what we know, got it very quickly, got it like that. Go, I know what that is. That looks like a duck, it's a duck. It looks like a cow, it's a cow. That's what it is. But there's other people out there who still haven't got it yet. They were shown that it was a duck and a cow back in 2019, back in 2020, but they still don't know what it is. They can't figure it out. And then it's the duck that's coming along telling you the duck is a duck and the cow is a cow, and then the cow's confused. You know, I'm the duck. You know, it's the propaganda machine. What am I getting at there with my silly analysis? The propaganda machine.
It's not. It's perfect. It's perfect analysis.
This is what I'm getting at. They're just confusing you.
It's social, yeah. So social conditioning. So I'll go back to, if you could get everybody to turn off their radio and turn off their TV, and not read newspapers and just not have any. If the state gives it money, don't touch it. If you could convince people to do that, then let people do their own research. Now, some of the people you're talking about, the NPCs, will probably just spend their days watching funny cat TikToks and whatnot. But you know what? No harm. There's no harm in that. We need a little bit of light entertainment and a bit of escape and all this and the other. But there's a good measure of people that this conversation will be. I have my following, you have your following, right? So a lot of people will listen to this in relation to, because I know Martin Murphy and I know Aaron Joyce. But outside of that network, even though this is going to go out across maybe 7 or 8 different platforms, it's going to be on Spotify, it's going to be on 2 different YouTube channels, it's going to be on 4 different X accounts. But this conversation is still going to touch so few people. If you know what I mean, they're not going to have access to it, so to speak, and they're not going to listen to it because you're not on the late show. You know what I mean? Or you know, it's a case of we and this is again why I want you to promote, and I wish you every success with LTT Media and anything that we can do to help promote it. As in 100% will, that this independent. I liked that you talked about local news. And you were talking about kind of 2 specific areas. I think that is a fantastic idea. Our problem is we're all very spread out over the country. I'm in Kerry most of the time. The rest of the lads are up the country, one in Dublin and further afield. I love that concept of local news, because you can technically build faster in that locality. You know what I mean? Just you're going to have your own people that know your friends, family, etc., and wider base. But covering local news will actually garner interest of people that wouldn't necessarily lean our direction, so to speak.
Yeah.
So I think that's absolutely fantastic. And then you just build outward as it gets bigger. But it's I suppose we as nationalists, in my own opinion, we don't get involved in local community enough. I would have been, in my own community, I would have been involved, same as you were talking about soccer, stuff like that. So rugby was my sport. Played, coached 16 years with the club in a town over. I don't live in that locality anymore. I live somewhere else. So I'm in a new community, and you'll find, because you're a little bit known now, and if somebody Googles your name, what normally comes up is the couple of hit pieces that Mail on Sunday did on me. That's normally what comes up first. And organizations don't want to let you in because you're the big, as Mick says, the big bad, far away, far right. You know, and then you're literally, you're not only off the ladder, you're kind of starting 3 paces away from the ladder, and you have to let people know, well, I'm actually not I'm actually
Yes.
just a dad, and I'm a normal guy, and I work, and look, I've got an hour or two to spare, and I'm offering my services to whatever, whether it be charity towns or this, that, and the other. But they don't want you there. They don't want you in.
We're now touching, though, Martin, or sorry, you're now touching on the reason as to why we're both not on the Late Late Show. Because the reason that they don't want someone who's capable of hosting, holding this type of discussion and having it in a proper format and manner. If that was presented to the Irish people, repeated over and over again, somebody will get something. Something's going to click like. They don't want that. They don't want somebody who's capable to be bombarded with questions and actually be able to answer it.
Yeah.
They don't want that. And I don't mean to be rude or to anybody who classes or counts themselves as part of a network, a community, or a movement, like we call it, that has been happening. There's no particular name on it. We know what I mean, right? But dare I say it without being disrespectful, the media, when they do try and present viewpoints and views from the right, they will take a clown out of the circus. God forgive me, you get my point. They will take someone that might be at one protest in 2 years, and they will go and pick someone that doesn't have a clue what they're talking about, and they will go and pick that person to be presented in front of the media. I'm saying this specifically because I know this, and this has occurred for a number of years for political parties and movements when presented in media. This has happened. They will pick people who don't even know the speakers, the hosts, the leaders, the communities that are being represented, which is ludicrous. But it happens, as you know, Martin. And
well, it's propaganda. Look, propaganda is propaganda, and I suppose I don't lie about it. I love propaganda. I love the concept of it. I know how to weaponize it. I know how to use it. I know exactly what I'm doing with these conversations. I'm like I said, the reach is always going to be a problem, but this is exactly what we're doing. We're trying to present reasonable, intelligent people having conversations, throwing ideas out there, and just kind of you want Johnny and Mary just sit and listen and go, Jesus, those two sound all right. That sounds like a conversation I'd hear between two lads sitting at the bar. They're not big, bad, scary people. They're just normal dads and husbands and brothers and fathers and this, that, and the other. And that's the that's the concept. I like what you said there, that you know, you'll never be on the Late Late Show. You'll never get. It's hard to get. Did you get any media coverage in Waterford when you ran, or did you get?
I did. In fairness, no. Look, I must say, in comparison to some of my other, I suppose campaign candidates that I would have known up and down the country, or don't mean to be. We're not in India. I know there's no caste system here, but I just mean some of the ones that would have been maybe better known. Like, I'm around since 2021, and I suppose there's a couple of other figures that have been or stood up at different times for different reasons, is what I'm getting at. And when they came onto the scene, we'd say, as a candidate, like, we're both aware some of them got turned down, shut away immediately.
Yeah.
And we're not, what do I mean by that? They weren't getting on community networks of television and radios. They weren't getting interviewed by local journalists. I must say I was very fortunate. There was only one, I won't name it actually. Some would argue, say, why don't you, Aaron? But look, there was only one that I had a bit of crossover with that I didn't attend, that I was invited to as a candidate. But I was in debates. I was in part of debates on television. I was with WLR, which I could thank them for great respect, I think, in fairness, putting my views across. They also invited me to a live debate, which took place. So I was fortunate, but to get to my point, my point being, me and you both know many others who may have not been that fortunate in dealing with mainstream media and networks at the time of candidacy.
I have to give a shout out to Fran and Tip FM as well. Now, because in fairness, he had me on loads, and he even had me on when I was still living in Tipperary. He actually had me on as a Friday contributor on the panel, because he liked the alternate view. Excuse me. So the future. Okay, so you've got your media enterprise. That's going to take up a lot of your time. I'm going to tell you now, it's going to take up a huge amount of your time. You done with politics? You're going to keep your finger in the pie. Do you think it's folly? Do you think it's something that you should even work behind the scenes? Or
for me, am I done with it? I don't think I'll be ever done with it, with the amount of time, effort and energy I put into it, I think, over the last few years, and what's kind of been built in our own community networks. I love the way you kind of trickle some words and statements there at the end, though, because look, they'd nearly all be applicable. or tossed in my head. Am I done with it? Direct answer, absolutely not. Will I ever be? But in what capacity? What am I doing with it? As I say, very much passionate about the community element now, growing. As I said and was brought up prominently in discussion, having a high 40s percentage not take place in local and national elections, dare I say that is not the exact figure, because I believe in the locals, but in the 37 and just slightly higher, I think, in the general. But I gave that initial generalized figure because this happened in both elections. And I see work having to be done by political parties, by people who aim to be political voices for their communities. They have to push this work. They have to push the work that these people need to be registered. If they argue back and shout back, why the hell should I be? What's it going to do for me? Well, look, that is your voice, number one. If you are trying to assist an alternative, you can't help anybody who's running in an election if you're not registered to vote. You're not going to do anything for them, and this is a big part of the problem. And you see, the collective, we've gone down, I think this is the first time prominently we have gone down politics route there in definitive questioning. And when you speak there, politics, am I finished with it? Is it finished with completely even in the country? I think for me, I think people, as we touched on, are disillusioned. They need a reason not to be disillusioned. They need to have people that they can actually trust. The system is broken. The system isn't trustworthy. The people can't be trusted. Let's start. We can't fix the system overnight. Let's start with people that can be trusted to go in there. Where do we start with people? I'm listening to people with 4 or 5 years, and I'll be honest, I wouldn't trust them across the road, let alone let them go into the government. I've stood beside them. There's some I've seen through. Let's be honest, there is. There's others who, let's face it, I think they're like a ticker at the moment in the background. Their time hasn't yet come. It's about that. There's people around us in the movement that they're coming. There's little stable groups like our own, whether it be political as a party or an organization or a communal, whatever it is. They're there. They've always been there. The seeds are set. They're operating. But I don't think the collective mindset of the people are there to respond to what's there. They say build it and they'll come. They're not ready to come yet. There's people I'm speaking to every day of the week that are alarmed by the situation in school and say, God forbid, Martin, what are we going to do if that ever happens? It's happening. It's in there. So Breda or Margaret that says, God forbid, what are we going to do when it happens? Breda, that time is now. What are you going to do? It's inside there now. And that's what I meant earlier on, Martin, when I said I don't think people are there just yet. I think some people are on different levels, not to separate and segregate humanity, but I just think they are. There's people here still in a COVID bubble. There's people here still at lockdown level. There's people here still staying 2 meters away from their mother. This is insane.
I throw a concept your way in relation to. Sorry for cutting across you there. So you're talking about build it and they will come. So I have a concept for an idea, and I touched on it earlier, saying that we're not doing enough in the local areas. So I'm not there yet, but in the next couple of years, I will build a nationalist hub in my community. It will be a place where it'll be open for everybody. Political, non-political, this, that, and the other. It's going to be, if you're an Irish business and you want to just fucking stick your card in there and one of the products you make, just give a bit of shelf space. You'll have IFP stuff, you'll have National Party stuff, you'll have every single political entity that wants to undo some of the harm and do some good for the Irish people moving forward. Their literature will be there. They will be offered access to studios. It's going to be studio in it. If you want to make videos, you want to do this, that, and the other, you need a place to just basically go and have a meeting quietly with anything like that. It's essentially going to be a nationalist clinic. You know what I mean? So it'll be open. It'll have information on housing. We'll have as much information we can pull from the councils as possible. And I mean local. There's no point in going national. It's too big. So just the local council in the local area. So if somebody's coming in saying I need help with housing, well, do you know what? I can get 4 registered political parties to send an email on your behalf to say that you need a house, and so on and so forth. This kind of work. A lot of people talk the talk in relation to, we need unity, this, that, and the other. I'm going to build it. It's only going to be in a very specific area, if you know what I mean, because it has to be where I live, or where I currently live and where I work. So have eyes on the property already, working on funding. Will I get it done this year? I'd be I'd be a very happy man if I succeeded doing this year. If it has to push on to next year, then that's it. And I'm sharing the idea out there because everybody should be doing something similar. All of the political parties and entities have clinics or offices and stuff like that. There's an added caveat to this as well that's plays into propaganda. I'll tell you about it when we're off the recording. But everybody should be doing that, unifying in that sense, as in, you know what, that's grand. You don't have to like us, you don't have to agree with something like that, but give me your stuff, and I will promote your ideas to my local community, and actually go, there's 5 or 6 different avenues. There's one where you don't vote at all and you just completely get off the grid and you just go and live. So there's one where you work within the system. You know what I mean? It's kind of, Into based or whatever like that, and everything in between. And then, like I said, just promote Irish businesses, promote ideas, promote if you have a shaman living in the area that people have forgotten about, get him in, and just everything, music nights. It's very, very, very doable. There's every town in this country has derelict properties sitting there, that you could literally turn this into. Look, listen, we work and we're busy and this, that, and the other. If I could open it up for an hour every evening, 2 hours every evening, just as a hub for people to get information and stuff like that. I think that's where we're missing. We're not visual enough in the community, and we need a physical presence, which is basically store frontage with a bloody sign over it and say, this is who we are. We are part of the community. We're here. We exist, and here's what we're offering. Come in and learn more. Because at the minute, we're just we're an idea that the papers are selling as the big bad far right. We're the idea that the government is selling as just far right lunatics and fringe lunatics and stuff like that. I think we need to stick roots into the community now, and everybody just work in their own little area. Like I said, that's what resonated me when you said, you know what I mean, you're going to be doing local news and you're going to be, I want to do that. I'd love to do that. Don't need to now because you're doing it. And that's the other thing. We can't be repeating each other's work. If you're doing something good, why the hell would I try and, you know what I mean? Everybody has their little bit to do in their skill set. It's really, really important.
I was speaking to Anthony about that as well. Actually, you're spot on. That's the key part, and that would reflect back to the point in which we discussed in the conversation that you have so many good people and groups and money and things like this just being misspent, or energy going all over the place because people are doing similar or same and not succeeding, which is even worse. It reminds me a little bit like the housing charities across the country. There's so many of them and there's millions and millions of euro, but we have so many homeless people. It makes no sense.
Well, so, the CEOs have to get paid, don't they?
that's true. But again, we could branch it nearly down that direction of a conversation. We could talk till 12 o'clock, Martin, and I have no problem in doing so. But the point being that what now, Mr. Irishman, could be, I'm sure, and will be a very successful series, because you will have many Martin Murphys, many Aaron Joyces, and I'm sure many other ladies who will be suitable and able to join you for discussions such as this, that I'm sure other people should listen to, and have their views and opinions and share them on them. Nobody's going to fully agree with me, and no one's fully going to agree with you, Martin, unfortunately.
Nor should they. Yeah, but nor should they. Yeah. And this is the thing. There's no right or wrong answers. There's what's generally, even if you come up with the perfect solution, you're still going to piss 10% of the people off, just because that's just the nature of things. It is just, yeah. So it's about finding the happy balance and the middle ground. I'll tell you how eager my team are. I just got a message there saying, are you finished talking? Pull the clips and send them up to me. I need to get these out online for the promo.
whoever is going doing them, apologize for it. I know you don't normally do edit, but we might have to do something, Martin, on this one. We've had about 2 or 3 slight hiccups.
No, leave them there. I'll tell you what. I leave them there, and for a reason, because, like I said, the whole concept of everything I do is it's honest. Like I said, if I could do them live, I would do them live, warts and all the mistakes, all the curse, this, that, and the other. But it's just, unfortunately, my studio is in Tipperary, but I live for the most part in Kerry, and just again, the internet isn't good enough down there, and I don't have the right cameras, I don't have the right mics and stuff like that. I will relocate this down there at some stage, but like I said, my life is living out of bags at the minute, a little bit. But listen, we're hitting 2 hours. Didn't feel like 2 hours, and we were only gone for 2 or 3 minutes in total. I know that you're scheduled to speak to Anthony on the other platform, which would be I'm going to really look forward to that, because that's going to be done face to face, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Yeah. So really, really looking forward to that. It's a case of, look, anything I can do to help you promote LTT. I have to do a bit more research on it. I have to get to know some of the other guys and listen into the other stuff. But look, I think you should see already, anything that's coming across in my social media feeds that I'm seeing with LTT is just like and share, like and share, like and share. So it's a case of, yeah, I'm really, really looking forward to it. And you know what, we were talking about bringing the Irish Column show, doing a couple of lives in relation to actually renting out a hall and doing the show, Sunday night show live from somewhere, doing it on a Saturday night, and having a live audience and stuff like that. And again, look, if you're just like, they're great crossover events, you know what I mean, where you can bring two groups of people together and two things, and you can have this wonderful panel conversation, you know what I mean, and people come and have a few drinks and sit around tables. And I was actually, just to segue into something, I was at the turning of the seal with the IRB on the 21st of January. Please tell me I got that date right, because
you did.
I had one of the most informative, enjoyable evenings at that. It was, I have to say, it was absolutely fantastic. Fantastic people, fantastic music. The hotel it was like being at a wedding, is the only way I could describe it. Everybody had their best clothes on. Obviously, there's some formalities and stuff like that. And once that was done, there was dancing and singing and conversation and talk. And it was absolutely fantastic. I have a couple of people lined up from it to speak to, and a couple of recordings done of people I met there. But you know, there's great ideas and great hope out there, you know. And I actually think you asked me 3-4 years ago, I would have said we're doomed. We're just doomed. I've got, as I get to know more and more people and more organizations, I think in the long run we're going to be okay. We've a tough battle ahead of us, but I think we're going to be okay.
I think so too, Martin. I'd like to believe so. I think there's a lot of challenges we'll face. I think people need to really have a look and see what they want to have accepted in their lives going forward. What kind of world do we want to shape for our children? What future do we want? You know, and I think we need to look at this a little bit more. I definitely like my role in life to play, or certainly we say on media as we touch it, to not be more so entertainment, but to be informative, to be of an helpful nature more so than anything else. We have a media present, as you've described a number of times throughout this, Martin, as propaganda. It is propaganda driven. This is where media sits. It shouldn't be. We've looked at many things down through the years of great journalists who took gambles, who lost their lives, by the way, to tell stories. Yeah. Media has changed considerably, even in my years on Earth, and that it has to change back. Media has to be honest. Media has to present live, local level news. If media is presenting news from Zimbabwe, Mozambique, or Afghanistan, that has to be factual news. What is the point presenting it otherwise? And we see across news networks globally that is not the case. Mm-hmm. And then we see what I would call collective or catalogued news, where you see 90 different news agencies by name, but they're all the same, printing the same out. And people need to cop onto this. We're beautiful people. We're amazing people. It's actually a name of a podcast concept coming from LTT Media, The Beautiful People. And it aims at this. We are beautiful people. We have many faults. We have many issues in life. We have many challenges in life. But we are highly intelligent beings. And, you know, we take up a lot of our lives with things like, even we touched on here, Martin, feelings, problems, issues. There's day-to-day things that erode at us, as I mentioned, you know, and we let these things happen. What do? We sometimes intoxicate our bodies, brains, our blood cells, but then with what? Drugs, alcohol, whatever it may be. I think there's a part there where we're not in tune with our higher selves or our greater intelligence. I think some of the people who are seeing what we're seeing. I think there's a large collective of people out there yet to wake up, which gives me that positive faith and hope in the belief, like you stated, Martin, that we're not doomed just yet. Like, the people have to see that eventually they may not agree with Aaron Joyce today and they don't agree with Martin tomorrow. But that's not to say that Martin's level and concept of some form of self-efficiency, of building a hub, of building an area where people can either go to for either camping, traveling, stress D time, or to live, all of that could not only be in physical operation, but could be very much appealing to everyone in the next 5 years. And I would see it to be the case. Look at the way Ireland is changing towards self-sufficiency and organic farming and living once again. That was not the case going back 10, 15 years ago. Convenience was. Still is today, but it definitely was the case.
On that extremely positive note, we're hitting the 2 hours. I'm going to end it. I know you're going talking to Anthony, but what I say to people is, will you come back on to me in 2 or 3 months' time, and we'll see what's changed and what's moved on, and recap the conversation and see where everything is. Because again, it's part of the thing. I would like to do it cyclic, almost, so to speak, that basically I start the year talking to people, and then I'm going to check in with them, so on and so forth, and just see, what's changed. Is it up, down, left, or right? So maybe even 2 more times in the year if you've time. I know you're going to be busy.
Any time, and I do appreciate the kind words. I do appreciate the gestures regarding LTT Media, and of course, I wish you the very best with this indeed concept, and I'm delighted to join you on. And as I said earlier on in the call, I think it's very important that medias and podcasts like this exist, and I think it's important that conversations like this not only take place but have an avenue to be listened to, and they should be listened to. And I do indeed wish you the very best with it, and I have no doubt that it will be successful, should you not get problems of algorithms and other people annoying your feeds. But I do mean it. I do mean it, that I'd encourage people to continue to listen to this series as it continues. I know you plan on having other guests on. I know you plan on covering quite a lot of topics. And this is what needs to be listened to. If the platforms are provided, I'd encourage people to take them up also. That's the second part that I would make. That people need to take up these opportunities when you have people like Martin presenting studios, willing to give up their time to have a chat like this. Take that opportunity. Get out there, get your group, get your focus, get your viewpoint out there, and take up that opportunity with Martin and indeed Gael Force Media, or indeed LTT Media, or any other like-minded medias that present the same format or platforms.
Aaron, stay in the studio. I'm going to drop you down. Just a second here. There we go. Okay, another one of the bags. 2 hours absolutely flew. I'm definitely having Aaron back on again, because we glanced over so many subjects, but there's so much more to talk about. Absolutely fantastic. LTT Media, really important. You'll find it on Facebook and all other social media platforms. Look them up, start following, start sharing. It's going to be absolutely fantastic. Thank you very much for tuning in.